Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week is the man with the keys to victory, John Keys.
Hello, Combat Sports Talk world.
All right. And the man, the double champ, the coach of the future, George G Money Stallworth.
What's up, CST Nation?
All right. Well, we're missing KC. We're missing Kelechi Onyebuchi. He got pulled away to work, but that's okay. He sends his regards, and he's going to be missing out on a great show. We have a great show for you tonight. I'm calling this the thin line between genius and insanity, because we are going to talk about the lengths that Dana White is going through in order to try to pull off the only MMA promotion that dares to defy COVID-19.
Umate.
Now
Call it right.
Yes, he is trying to put together a fight island in international waters or somewhere away from governmental interference that's been stopping him, thwarting him at every single turn. That is what his plan is, but he is still trying to put together a fight. He is still trying to put together a fight before Fight Island happens, and that's okay. You know why? Because if he does, he will be the only sporting event that's taking place. He's going to get fans from all over the place because we as Americans, we as the world, are starving for some type of sporting event. You know what? You know, I watched a hedgehog do an like a miniature American Ninja course. I'm so starved for sport right now.
I can't lie. Watch my cats race around just to see some violence. I mean, that's what I do now. I have two cats. They race each other, and I just sit there and watch. That's my entertainment for now.
George, how are you hanging out?
It's getting to the point where we are watching guys play video games of sports as entertainment now. What in the world?
Hey, man, don't be knocking on the esports guys, man. They're I can't even say that, man. Let's just go on to the segments, man.
All right. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? We have to go into the headline. The headliner is the number one topic that I want to talk about this tonight, and it's a good one. Here we go. All right, this is the headliner. This is where we're going to talk about the number one topic of the day, and that is MMA cancellations. The UFC officially canceled 4 events due to the coronavirus pandemic. That is, they did UFC Lincoln, which was scheduled for April 25th, UFC Oklahoma City, which was scheduled for May 2nd, UFC 250, which was scheduled for May 9th, and UFC San Diego, scheduled for May 16th. So that means that the scheduled docket of fights that the UFC has, they're all off the table. They're all off the table. Now, you know Dana White's been trying to get the promotion up, but for it to be announced today that those fights are over, do you think that Dana White is sunk? Do you think that he is done?
Nah. He's setting us up for Fight Island. He is setting us up for the Kumite. I think that if he's not sweating about it, then people trust me. Dana White has a plan, and I'm going to put my faith in Dana White.
George?
I don't know. I like to put my faith in Dana too, but Disney and ESPN apparently like to sink his battleship from time to time. And
oh yeah.
ESPN has a vested interest in whether or not, Dana is able to comply and get the, proper number of fights in for this year. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Dana White is able to pull the ace out of his pocket and play it.
And I think that's the whole point of the secrecy around Fight Island. He is not telling anybody the location of it because he doesn't want anybody to scrutinize it. Okay, because think about it. If it's somewhere, if he says, well, it's here, what they're gonna do? They're gonna scrutinize everything about it. If it's 200 feet within international borders, within U.S. coastline, they're going to sit there and say, no, you can't do it. All right, so there's something I get his method to it, that he's going to keep it completely secret. That way, that nobody can find this place and nobody can complain about this place or try to scrutinize it or try to bomb his plans. And he's going to get his money. Okay, the ESPN slash Disney, they're coming off of a good piece of cheddar.
All right.
Mickey Mouse style.
I don't. Very nice. I get you there. Yeah. Yes, that was good. So, here's the thing: is he has been harping on May 9th, May 9th, May 9th, May 9th. But what this announcement that came out, which cancels an event on May 9th, which was UFC 250, that was scheduled in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I still think that the UFC has an event scheduled for May 9th somewhere, somehow. He is going to still pull that off. That is the fight that's featuring Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. I think that there's supposed to be a couple of other title fights on that card. I can't think of the other ones right now, but this is the one that Tony Ferguson was building up to, which was supposed to happen on Saturday. I still think it's happening on May 9th. We'll talk about that a little bit more as to why I think that. The other one, PFL, Professional Fighters League, suspended their 2020 season due to COVID-19, but they have sworn that they will pay their fighters the monthly stipend. Good on them to take care of the fighters who are counting on that money.
Yes, it is. It sucks. I was actually looking forward to watching some PFL this year, but it is what it is. 2021 is going to be all that much more.
So, if you guys have anything that you want to say about some of the things that we're talking, be sure to comment to us, talk to us. We will put that on the screen and we'll talk through it and let you know what we think about the things that matter to you. We're going to go into our next segment, that is Finding the Angles. All right, this is Finding the Angles. This is where we talk about the headlines that are making waves in the MMA world. The first one, we got to do it because it's my boy. It's El Cucuy, Tony Ferguson. He made weight for a fight that had been canceled.
Good for him.
Yeah, good. Yes, good for him. Like, I'm looking at George, and George is like, what? Why would you do that? Because it's pride. It's a man who takes pride in the work that he does. He said that this wasn't about him. It was for his team. They had cut for him. They had trained with him for all of this time to make April 18th, that for him to just be like, you know what, screw it. I don't need to cut weight. I don't need to make my weight. I don't need to be a championship, and show the dedication that he was not willing to do that. So he went through the entire weight cutting process, showed up on his scale at 155.0 pounds. He did it. That's snap jitsu for you. George,
as you age, you only get so many, weight cuts. And we've seen it before, fighters, as they get older, it gets harder and harder to make their weight, man. And why put yourself through something like that when you don't have to?
Because he's Tony Ferguson. That's what he does.
And what benefit did anyone get out of this? Anyone? Can you tell me one person that benefited from him cutting weight?
Right here. This guy.
I'll wait.
This guy. Me. I benefited. Yeah. It let me know that sometimes you got to do it for just the pride and the quality of the work. Johnny Hearns is on. He says he's talking to us. He says it's marketing. Keeps him in the conversation. Adds to the mystique of Tony.
It adds to the craziness of Tony. And I love Tony. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, he crazy.
Yeah. Johnny's right though. It does add on to the El Cucuys out there that are following him loyally. This just made their mouth water that much more. Like, he is always game. If Uncle Dana called him up right now and said, Tony, I need you to fight in 2 hours, Tony can sit there and say, I got you, boss, and head on out there and do what he does. Okay. Mm. It adds on to the legend. I'm not mad at him. I just don't think it was very wise. Because, like you said, he's only got so many of these that he can do after a while.
See, Tony, have you guys listened to any of the Tonys? That type of guy. Tony Ferguson's the type of guy who,
Yes.
like, I have
He's getting
created
Chuck
so
Norris
many
much.
of those. Yeah, he's got that Chuck Norris type thing. I like to make those up. So here's one on the fly. Tony's the type of guy that if Dana White gave him 5 minutes to fight, he would digitize himself and teleport himself somewhere on the other side of the world to be there to fight in 5 minutes. That's the type of guy Tony Ferguson is. That wasn't good. Let's just keep going. Lyman Good had COVID-19 before UFC 249. So Lyman Good, he's a fighter who was the first to reveal that he had a positive test for COVID-19 coming into UFC 249, which was scheduled for April 18th. He pulled himself out prior to when the card was scheduled, but it goes to show that there are fighters out there who may have come in contact with the virus. And if they continue to go in and fight, because 25%, I've heard, allegedly, of people carry the virus but show no symptoms, there are fighters that could have gone to UFC 249 with COVID-19 and been a vector for getting more people injured. So that's the danger that fighters are facing if the UFC actually pulls off a card during this period of isolation and sheltering at home. What do you guys think about that?
That does make an interesting point. I mean, if he has shown, I mean, he did pull himself out, which was very responsible of him to do so. Mm-hmm. But what if they did show up and that happened? Would they have, what would have happened? What kind of ramifications would that have brought on?
Yeah, and we've talked about this before when we've seen Kevin Lee have staph infections because the weight cutting and the training process, pulls down your immune system. These fighters could be putting themselves at even greater risk because of the fact that they've cut their weight, and they've done whatever it is they need to do to be ready to fight, compromising their immune systems in the process. You agree with that, George?
Hey, I just asked you guys a minute ago, who benefited from Tony Ferguson cutting weight? And during this time, you get what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. We need to be having catch weights at whatever fights are coming up next. I definitely think that this could be an issue.
See, George, you talking that language I like. Catch weight, or you know what? That open weight still looks good. All right.
No.
I hear Hoist Gracie speaking.
Oh,
he says, "Go ahead and do this. Go ahead and do this."
No.
It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead and do this. I got that. I got my Gracie black belt waiting on it.
Yeah, but he can't wear it to the ring. You can tell that.
There is that.
Here's the thing. Even though Lyman Good came down with COVID-19, Dana White is still pressing forward for a May 9th card. Like I said before at the top of the show, the cards that got canceled through May 16th were all things that were already on the calendar. This is a fight that is not on the calendar. I don't think it's dead in the water. I think Dana White is still trying to put this card on, and what he did on Friday is indication that he is planning something big. He had a call with UFC fighters to talk about the coronavirus pandemic. Here are the things that he told them. Number one, fighters don't have to fight if they don't feel safe. Two, Dana White is participating on Donald Trump's coronavirus economic task force, which gives him access to information that other people don't. He says that the locations that he's working on are secret, that he has already met with the Nevada's governor, which we'll talk a little bit about later. He said that fighters who had fights canceled will get first dibs on the next card that's available. He's also made it possible if anyone is struggling to reach out. He said probably not on catch weight fighting. So George, sorry, he's not going to give you catch weights. But he also said that you have to make tough decisions because you may not be able to bring cornermen into these fights. Now, this is the one I want to talk about. I want to talk about this because George, you're a coach, you're a fighter. what is the impact of not having cornermen in the fights when you go into the ring?
Not having that wise, intelligent ear lending you whatever advice needs to be heard. Somebody, you're not having a second set or a third set of eyes seeing things go down who can correct you or point you in the right direction. So that is major, not having a corner man or not being able to have a coach there as you fight. And then the other thing, not having someone who can just whip you back into shape and get your head back in the game. Because a lot of times in fights, if I get hit too much or touch too much, we have this negative self-talk, and sometimes you need somebody to bring you, to get your head back in the game. Like, hey, that round happened. It's over with. Get over it. Let's get back in this. Being in there by yourself and not having someone who can either pump you up or give you a reality check or say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you need to do. There's a major factor. And not having somebody there to do that is going to be a problem for a lot of fighters.
So, who would not have a problem with this? Diego Sanchez. Because he's only got one dude, Josh Fabia, right? Like, that's his only dude. So other pieces that we should mention, Americans would be able to fight on Fight Island. International Fight Week, probably not going to happen in Las Vegas in July. They will have medical staffs and hospitals readily available at every event, and the goal is to have fights every Saturday starting May 9th. Remember, we were going to talk about why Dana White is so intense on trying to deliver fights right now. The last one is that there's some issues with Performance Institute and the meals that they're getting there, but the issue will be fixed soon. So that's what he communicated on a conference call with UFC fighters. Then he said that the UFC is going to return. It's going to be very expensive for them to deliver this, but he has it figured out. If you guys out there who are listening to this, if you've got some opinions on this, let us know what you're thinking. Type in the text box. Let us know. So he says that he is not stopping. He says, can it be done? Yes, it's going to be very expensive, but he's willing to spend the money to do it. This is an investment, y'all.
So a couple of things I drew out of that. Americans may fight on Fight Island. Why is that such an important point to pull out? Is my question.
It's a good question.
All right. Secondly, the lack of cornermen really has the Bloodsport credits rolling in my head right now. I'm just waiting to see guys, the ring girls and the guys around the ring, the cameramen, being in like some gray silk pajamas and filming everything. So I'm looking forward to that, Dana. That is an expensive thing to pull out, because silk is expensive these days. Something tells me that this island is nowhere where we think. We're thinking it could be in the Atlantic. It could be in the Pacific. I bet it's somewhere in the Pacific. That's all I got.
George, what do you think? What do you think? Where do you think the Fight Island? Where do you think Fight Island's going to be?
I don't know, man. We were always joking about it, talking about it's probably going to be Jeffrey Epstein's island. It's not far fetched while y'all are playing.
Okay, so it kind of is, because I was doing the math on it. Cue my music, dog.
All right, here we go. All right. Got you.
So I was doing all the mapping on it, and come to find out that Epstein's Island is too close into American territory. So that can't happen. However, in the Pacific, there are many dotted islands around there. And there's actually a website that actually sells those islands as well.
Oh, wow.
As a matter of fact, there's an island in Brazil that's for sale for like $3 million.
Oh,
and
that all?
That all. And it's self-contained and everything. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. What if he does it down there? Because technically, that's not you. That can't be. That's not. Well, if he does it far enough away from Brazil, it can be considered international waters. Now, the thing that you have to be careful with, and which will be the telling tale, is if there's a tropical storm, if there's a storm that happens, we can tell where it's at because he'll have to close that island down. That's gonna be the clincher. I just now thought about that.
Listen, here's why it could still be Jeffrey Epstein's island.
Okay.
Does it have a name? We should probably call it something else. But anyway, here's why.
No, you do not want to know the name of that island.
Probably not. Here's why it could still be Jeffrey Epstein's island, because as it's off the coast of Florida, right?
Right.
So Dana White, Governor DeSantis, is a contact of Dana White. If it's far enough off the coast of Florida, it's still going to be in federal waters, and we already know that Dana White is on the president's economic task force. So it's possible that he could get on an island because of how the relationships that he has with Florida, with the governor of Florida, and with the president of the United States. He could make that happen. It's a private island. The federal law enforcement could be told to stand down and not try to intervene there. So it is indeed possible that he could still do it there, and there is lots of infrastructure already there, which is what he said. He said it was a private island. It had infrastructure already that you could fly to.
Yeah.
So it's not. It can't be that far off of the coast of some country, and you really don't want to be in Brazil trying to put on fights. You want to be closer to the United States.
Hence why it says but Americans may fight on Fight Island. That tells me that it's not close to the U.S. soil as we think it is, though.
That's fair. We'll have to see.
All
right. Well, we know that it won't be in Nevada. The governor of Nevada vowed to put lives before dollars. He has kept the Nevada State Athletic Commission closed until further notice, which means that you're not going to be able to get a sanctioned fight in the state of Nevada, which was the original plan for the UFC to fight at the Apex Center, but that's not going to happen. So let's talk about what the financial implications of the COVID-19 epidemic would be on the UFC and the parent company Endeavor. So we've been talking about it. The Wall Street Journal had an article that said that the UFC is pushing through to reach event quota, and they stand to earn $750 million if they deliver on the fights that they are required to show. That number is 42. Jackie Robinson's number. He has to deliver 42 fights in 2020 to earn the full payout. Now, he has lost out on, March. He's lost out on April. He's into May now before he could put on fights. So in order for him to put 42 fights on, because at the writing of this article, I believe he had only done like 20 or something like that. Yeah, it was a 42. No, he's only put on 7 at the writing of this article. He has 35 more fights. 35 more fights that he's got to put on before the end of the year.
Ooh, it's going to be close.
It's going to be real close because he doesn't have enough fighters to do it.
Oh, he's got enough fighters.
The thing that strikes me most in this is the fact that ESPN has a vested interest in this.
So, yeah.
If he doesn't make it, they get to keep that money.
Right.
If he does make it, they're paying out that money. And we're talking about $750 million in COVID-19 times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. So based on what it says is the ESPN contract, the UFC is required to put on 42 shows in 2020. They've only hosted 7 so far, meaning they have to put on the remaining 35 fights. The current deal is thought to be $150 million for the year for ESPN, and another $150 million for the year for ESPN Plus. $200 million guaranteed by ESPN for pay-per-views, with an upside if events sell well. They are thought to be getting around $100 million a year for sponsors and $100 million for international broadcast rights, and millions more on licensing fees. So all of that is contractually guaranteed. But if so this is what I was saying before, and this is what I was saying before is the UFC doesn't have to put on pay-per-view events and they be successful. Remember we were talking about how the pay-per-view events were not doing as well as they have in the past. Well,
Right.
the fact is that for a pay-per-view event, they get about $20 million. That's not breaking the bank. That's not even moving the needle. So that's just gravy money, because it's the contract with ESPN that's actually giving them the proceeds that they need. All of those sponsorship dollars and everything like that. That's where the revenue comes from. So they could care less what's happening with the pay-per-views, because all that money is just gravy. So why does this matter? Because if they don't get this $750 million paycheck, it has big implications on the parent company, Endeavor, who just got their credit downgraded from the S&P Global. They used to be B, which is highly speculative, and now they're at CCC plus, which is substantial risk. Which I just want to say, shout out to King Cringe himself, Henry Cejudo. You can see that CCC ain't good.
Oh,
I like what you did there.
He did. I see what you did.
Risk. There you go.
He did that on the Pop Fly, people. He did not discuss this at all during our pre-warm up. He did not. That was Pop Fly right there.
There you go. So if the $750 million don't come in, the way that Endeavor's finances are set, they are so heavily leveraged right now that who knows what could happen to the UFC. The UFC is actually in financially better shape than the parent company. So who knows? They may end up having to sell to keep the company going.
Hold on. Did you just sit there and say the way that my account, we would do this, but the way my account is set up? Did you just say that?
Wait, what?
In so many terms, he did. The parent company is not in the best of shape right now. The UFC is in better shape than its parent company. Therefore,
I got the money for you, but the way my account is set up,
I'm gonna need you to put on some fights at Fight Island.
That's right. That's right. So I'm sure that Dana White is under tremendous pressure from the Endeavor's owners to put these fights on, because if they don't get that $750 million, the biggest promotion in the world may become Bellator or ONE FC.
Wow, look at that.
All right, it's enough COVID-19 talk. People, I don't know what you guys are thinking out there who are watching about COVID-19 and the UFC and all that kind of stuff. It's fascinating stuff, but at the same time, let's talk about fighters. Let's talk about the great fighters and preserving their legacy and knowing when to stop or not stopping soon enough. So there was an article that I saw about Michael Bisping, and he was saying that you can't buy a legacy. He regrets taking the Gastelum payday because he ended up damaging his good eye. We know that he's suffered detached retina in one of his eyes and kept him from being an effective fighter. And the knockout that he took from Gastelum down in, what was it, Macau, something like that.
Yeah,
it was a devastating knockout, which ended up blinding him partially, and ended up messing up his good eye. So, this is interesting because he's saying that he is regretting having done that, which I don't know why he thought that was a great idea other than the financial aspects of taking this fight. But he had just gotten knocked out by George St. Pierre. He had just gotten finished in that fight. 3 weeks later, even though he was under advisement to be suspended to recover from that, he takes this fight with Kevin Gastelum and gets knocked out, head turned, chin to shoulder. Like this is how hard he got hit. Right there.
Because he's just that dude. He's always been that dude. I remember when he first showed up on The Ultimate Fighter, believe it or not, he wasn't even in the finals. And they were, and something that happened where one of the fighters couldn't make it, and they were scrambling, and he was the first or second guy that Dana White pulled in and said, "Hey, I need you to come in and fight." And Mike was like, "Yeah, let's do this." Mm-hmm. So that's the type of guy he is. He's going. Was it for a payday? Yeah, probably it was. But at the same time, he's always game. He's always game to fight.
Wow. So Michael Bisping being one, another great who should have known when to stop but didn't is Anderson Silva. Did you know that Anderson Silva wanted to retire from MMA before the first Chris Weidman fight? Basically, he had run through his division. Chris Weidman was one of the last people left before, Anderson Silva was like, I've done all that I can do at middleweight. And basically that began the dark times in the Spider's life, because he got knocked out in that fight, came back, got the broken ankle, came back, and then beat Nick Diaz, and then got popped for PEDs. He's won one fight since all that happened, but he still wants to fight. He believes that God is telling him that his work is not done yet.
It's odd to me that we're hearing this now, years after the Weidman fight. Like,
wait, so what you're saying is that this is kind of revisionist history? Like he was going to retire. He was not going to retire back 10 years ago, but now that he's gone through this rough patch in his career, now he's talking about how he should have retired. Like, I don't understand.
Well, just the thought that, hey, I was going to retire if I won the Weidman fight. Mm-hmm. Hey, I was going to retire if I won the second Weidman fight. And then now, not only did I not retire, but I stick around for 6 more fights and I lose the majority of them. Mm-hmm. I don't know, why are we just now hearing this? Why has it been 4 or 5 years and now we're hearing this? I don't understand where this is coming from with Anderson. But you also have to remember Anderson has made some weird statements in the press here over the last few years. So maybe this is a little bit of CTE.
Well, I know that you're thinking that it may be some CTE, but if Anderson Silva was here, he would say it's normal. It's normal.
Well, no, I've heard. I mean, they were talking about that before the Chris Weidman fight. That there's been rumors that he might retire at this fight, or he may stay on for one more. I guess this is, but that doesn't excuse the fact that, you still kept fighting afterwards. You should have took that first loss and said, you know what? I'm good. I'm out. I'm going to go open up a Muay Thai college in Los Angeles or something. But he stayed on. And so I think I'll chalk that up to a little bit of machismo, a little bit of pride. All right. Because, you're a champion. You don't know how to stop. All right, that's what happened with Chuck Liddell. That's what happened with a lot of the former champions, that they just don't know when to stop, with the exception of maybe one.
George St. Pierre.
The great one.
So
yes,
George St. Pierre. Yes. George St. Pierre says he is happy in retirement. It would take a 180-degree turnaround to get him to fight again. He says he never enjoyed a single second in the octagon in his entire career.
He is lying. Okay, he lies. All right, and 180. He said 180-degree turn. Is that how you spell Khabib? Is that what Khabib means in what, Dagestani? Is that 180-degree turn? Is that what that means? Because I guarantee if Khabib's like, yeah, man, let's go do this. All of a sudden, he's loving life again. He's back in the gym. Well, he's been in the gym. I mean, if you haven't followed him on Instagram or Twitter, he still is training. So I think he can make weight right now and still be ready to fight. And so,
the challenge is that George St. Pierre says that it's not the fact that he doesn't want to fight Khabib, and it's not the fact that Khabib doesn't want to fight him. It's the UFC, because the UFC doesn't want Khabib to take a loss from George St. Pierre.
Boy, that's some Ricky Bobby talk right there. Ooh.
Yeah, he said George St. Pierre said the UFC didn't want to take the risk of him beating Khabib and ruin their investment. He says he gets it. They had other plans for Khabib, but he should take it as a compliment, because they saw George St. Pierre as a threat to their golden eagle, if you will.
George St. Pierre, his trolling skills are top 10 right now. Exactly. And that is just, look, if there's any other reason to make this fight now, that's reason enough. Just because he said, hey, y'all don't want me to, take out your boy. I understand.
It would be a great fight.
I bet Habib flipped the table when he heard that. I bet he did. Cause I'm ready to flip a table. Man, what?
Do you
Like
want
you
to see
said,
that
what?
fight? Show me location. Do you want to see that fight though? George St. Pierre is a welterweight. For
Yes.
years, he ran from Anderson Silva at middleweight. Now he wants to fight a lightweight. Come on, man.
But he's
Well,
fighting the
this
wrong
goes
lightweight.
back to Dana White's Fight Island and catch weights. Y'all don't understand. Even though whenever Dana says we're not going to do something, that means we're definitely doing that.
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
it. Women will never fight in the UFC. Ronda Rousey becomes the #1 star on the planet. I mean, you could just go back and think of many things Dana said. This will never happen on my watch.
Mhm.
And sure enough, it's happened. So
He's only kept one promise, and that's Paul Daly.
Yeah,
Okay,
never
that Paul
coming back.
Daly wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
That's the only promise he's ever kept. Everything else on the table. So yeah, catch weight, open weight. Okay, we're in international waters, baby. Open weight is a possibility. You weigh how much? You weigh 205 pounds. How much you weigh, Habib? 160 something. Come on in, man. We're gonna make this happen.
No.
All right.
Gosh.
Yes.
I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong.
We're gonna get at least a catch weight in there. All right, Mark. Look, trust me. If he says no, Dana's no is akin to I've thought about it. Let me keep that option out there.
how
That's
much
what
money
that is.
can I make off of this?
Exactly. I guarantee if people were chomping at the bit for an open weight, it's going down.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that BMF belt just became super relevant again. Okay, it became super necessary.
Super necessary. Very
Super
nice.
necessary.
So, a topic that I like to speak about a lot. If you've known me, if you've seen this show at any point in time, I love to talk about the whole GOAT conversation. George St. Pierre weighed in on the GOAT's conversation. He said that it's a fugazi. It doesn't exist. That GOAT is not a real thing. He says there's always going to be someone on this planet that can beat you on any given day. There are just guys that have your number, which means that there will never, ever be a GOAT. I disagree with him on that, but I like his thinking.
I've had this conversation before. I had a friend that said the exact same thing, that there's always going to be somebody that's going to be beating you. And that's fine. You can say that. But there's also a place that you can put people like, this dude, it took 20 some odd people to finally catch this dude's number. And it also goes back to the whole point of saying, when are you smart enough to say, okay, I'm out? Because that's part of the game, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, to go in there, beat as many people's butts as you can, and realize like, oh, I may need to back out of this, and I'm retired. That's what I think part of being the GOAT is about. It's not only having the ability to go in there and whoop that butt, but have the ability to sit there and say, I'm done.
Well, Habib is the one that he says he's only got like 1 or 2 fights left. You got Daniel Cormier. Even though Daniel Cormier has lost the fight, I don't believe that you have to be undefeated to be the GOAT. You just gotta win a lot of this. Oh, Sonia Gutierrez. She just said something. All time versus his time.
Ooh, that's also another good. That's good philosophy.
The greatest of all time versus the greatest of his time. You know, you've got generational fighters who, you know, I think you can absolutely. I think we can begin to agree on that particular framing, right? That in that generation, who was the greatest welterweight during that time? You hands down, it's George St. Pierre. That's an easy. But once you start getting greatest welterweight of all time, or you start getting greatest fighter of all time, then it becomes a much more difficult conversation to have. So I agree with Sonia that definitely George St. Pierre is the greatest of his time, and you know, another person who's the greatest of his time, or what he likes to say, the most dominant fighter in the UFC and possibly in the world. It's a man by the name of John Bones Jones.
Oh, we're talking about this.
So there's a lot of.
I like how you segue into this.
You know what? I got to say that John has been setting me up very well tonight. So I hats off to you, sir.
It's a gift.
So John has said that he gets too drunk. His love affair of alcohol puts him in bad situations, but it won't outweigh the awesome things about him. And so, he's basically saying that his character gets too drunk when he drinks, but he's not going to allow it to outweigh the awesome things about himself. Some people only focus on what they want. He's focusing on his good traits, which means he is in a whole world of denial. That's what you call it, denial. John Jones, You got a problem, my man.
Yep, and you aren't, and you're not going to ever hit rock bottom from the looks of things. Okay, I don't know what's going to take for him to hit rock bottom. Jail time. What would have made it really hard for you is jail time with coronavirus. Okay,
Ooh,
I think that would.
Look, wait. Why are you trying to? That's cruel and unusual punishment. Now you trying to give the man
he's
jail
saying
time
that
and
just
coronavirus.
at this epic time, this could have been a likelihood. John could have easily been locked up and exposed as a result. That's all he's saying.
All right.
Yeah. That's rock bottom right there. Because once you got the Rona, that's it. You
could have avoided it if you had just stayed at home like you put in your post the day before.
Man,
that would have been epic if he went to jail and something happened like that for real.
He caught the Rona.
Yeah.
It's like Harvey Weinstein's revenge or something.
Oh man, it's like Montezuma's revenge, but but with coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, man. Okay, he's not going to hit rock bottom because he is... Okay, let's put it out there. He is a physical force of nature in that ring. Nobody's moving like him yet. Nobody's fighting like him yet. And until that happens, until somebody puts his lights out, he's going to continue to be like this. Because I guarantee the first time he gets knocked out is going to be the worst time of his life. He will, mark my words, a man in this much denial is going to have such a horrible recovery with that loss, because not only did you just lose, but you lost your belt.
So here's my question. Well, he's lost his belt several times, but no one's ever beaten him before.
No. There's a difference between somebody taking your belt, somebody telling you must relinquish your belt because you did wrong, and then somebody coming in that ring and taking it from him. So there's a world of difference.
So George, I got it for you. I think John brings a compelling point. Who would you like to see be that guy that takes out John Jones, that brings him back to earth?
Anyone take him out, honestly.
Really?
I'd like to see him retire undefeated for the most part. He's got that one loss by disqualification on his record.
Yeah.
Let him be that. I mean, when you think about the terms in which we talk about John Jones, his story will always be clouded by the things he's done. But what can overshadow that cloud is the fact that he has been undefeated. I don't want to see him take a loss from anyone. And I don't think there's anyone out there that can beat him right now. But at some point, he's going to have to retire. Otherwise, he runs the risk of pulling an Anderson Silva. He runs the risk of pulling a Michael Bisping. He runs the risk of not living up to George St. Pierre's tactics of going out while on top.
Mm-hmm.
And we know he suffers from CTE. Hell, he told the cop, he's like, my short-term memory is pretty bad. And he's like, I get hit in the head a lot. So not that he's ever taken good advice from anyone. And we know his ego is pretty much up there. It's going to be hard to get him to retire at a time when he probably should. But I would like to see him go out undefeated.
All right. John, what do you think?
Would it be nice to see him go out undefeated? Yes, it would. But I think people, in order to save his life, he needs to take an L. He needs to seriously take an L, because if he does not, my fear is that he goes out on top and that ego never goes away, and then something really bad happens to him offline.
So who would you want to see be that person to give him that L?
Woo! Mahete talks a lot of is really hard on the man. Okay, so I was listening to Uncle Chael the other day, Chael's son, and he has a podcast, Bad God Inc. That's the only plug-in I'll do for that. He talked about Mahete and says he is by far one of the most interesting people to listen from, but he never does interviews. He's very quiet. He just gets straight to the point, and he does it. But the things that he says is very reputable because he doesn't lie. He has yet to lie about anything. So he said that he is the guy that he wants him. He would like to see him fight John Jones again. John Jones is very smart to avoid him for all the obvious reasons. One day he says that, he wishes to go fight everybody. How's he going to go back to, saying that this guy has beat him when he's already beaten him once? That's the guy I want to see. I want to see Mahete running back.
So, by the way, Mahete is Thiago Santos.
Thiago, I'm so sorry. But
his nickname is Mahete, which is Hammer.
Right? Yes. Sledgehammer, I thought. But,
Sledgehammer, hammer, something like that. He's got the big Thor's hammer tattoo on his chest. Thiago Santos.
Yes.
So,
Right,
definitely, George, I know where you're coming from. It would be great to see John Jones really be that dominant force, be that true person where no one can take away from him that he is the greatest MMA fighter on the planet, the most dominant fighter, and the greatest of all time. To see someone achieve that, it would absolutely be a phenomenal thing. And to see greatness, we don't get to see greatness a lot in our lifetimes. So to be able to see that, I think would be amazing. And John Jones is poised to be able to do that. But I agree with John in that if he does achieve that, I don't think it does anything for his ability to be able to learn from his mistakes. Because every time he makes a mistake, we think that he's learned his lesson. We think that he's hit rock bottom, and he hasn't. Once you're faced an opponent and that opponent wins that belt from you, then you absolutely have to make changes. The Conor McGregor that we saw after the Nate Diaz fight when he lost, the totally different Conor McGregor than what we saw leading up to that. It wasn't until after he won again that he began to be this Conor McGregor that, proper 12 and all that kind of stuff. When he lost after the Khabib fight, what?
I mean, after the Nate fight. Oh,
but when he lost after the Khabib fight, he
okay. He humbled again.
So there's something about having a fighter who is that big bravado that has all of this attention. When they lose a fight, they have to go back to square one. They have to start listening again. And I think that that's something that John Jones needs to do. I don't wish ill on John Jones, but I can say this. George St. Pierre, who is widely considered one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, of his time, when he lost to Matt Serra, which was only the anniversary of that was only a few weeks ago, he had to reset his focus. He had gotten too big for his britches. He even said so himself. And after he came back and took that belt back from Matt Serra, he was the George St. Pierre that we now call the GOAT, even if he won't. So, for me, the person that I would like to see John Jones lose to on his road to greatness, and I want to say that, he's going to take a loss. If he's going to take a loss on this road to greatness, I want it to be Anthony Smith.
Interesting.
I want Anthony Smith to be that guy. Not Dominic Reyes, not Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith. And the reason why is because I don't feel like John Jones is doing right by Anthony Smith and this whole break-in situation. Like, after Anthony Smith tells this harrowing story of this guy who came into his house and he fought for 6 minutes while he waited for the first responders and the police to get there with his wife and his family, his children in the house, John Jones says if it was him, the guy wouldn't have walked away. And it's like, come on, man. This is a time for you to show solidarity against a fighter who respected you and you respected him, and you guys went to war against each other, went 5 rounds, and had a good moment. And you're going to say that in a moment where this guy could have lost his life? You're going to say that, John?
And on top of that, Anthony did the stand-up thing in that fight with him because he could have easily won that fight by disqualification.
Absolutely. So then Anthony Smith comes back and he goes, "What a perfect moment to flex, John. In the middle of a disaster like that in my house, what a perfect opportunity to flex how GD cool you are. Just when you thought that's pretty admirable of John Jones to reach out and well wish me, then you continue reading and you're like, oh, that's right, I forgot you're still a douchebag. It's just his opportunity to insert himself and make sure everybody knows how cool and how bad he is. He says, just for a second, I thought you were human and you had a soul, and then I realized you're still the same piece of poop that you've always been. You're such a douchebag." John Jones wouldn't let it go.
Nope.
John Jones responds and says, "Anthony, if you're going to leave your garage door open all night, hurry up and buy the family a gun, some mace or something. A douchebag more like me would have completely had his way with you all night and would have been bad for everyone." And then John Jones does the ultimate troll move and says, get your screenshots. Here comes the delete. This is my favorite part. And he deletes it. So I know that I have been one of those people to be like, listen, this fake Yoda, this fake higher than thou John Jones that he wants to personify, I don't believe it's authentic. I think it's a character. I think that he truly is a troll. This is evidence that he is a troll. And I'm like, listen, just embrace it. But now that I'm seeing it embraced, now that I'm seeing John Jones be a troll, I'm like, no, go back to being Yoda. Because I don't like this John Jones. This is not a John Jones that I like. I don't like this John Jones at all.
Well, y'all forget, I think there was also was it this week or last week? He had another beef with Izzy too.
Yes.
And,
this is him.
He posted a picture of Izzy being knocked out and said some less than suspect things to Izzy. And Izzy being the ultimate meme guy was like, hey, he went in on John.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
at least I'd never had my belt taken by the UFC. At least he just rattled off these things real quick. But
I mean, why are you upset? This is John Jones. This is the John Jones that I saw at the when they had the interview between him and Daniel Cormier. You still there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the John Jones.
That's not quite what he said.
Yeah, I know. I have to.
But we're keeping it clean. Thank you, John, for editing yourself.
Yeah.
I like how you jumped in there real quick about keeping it clean, Ryan.
But this is him. I mean, this is what I wanted to see. John Jones is not a role model, people. He is not anybody to look up to. He is a phenomenal fighter in the ring, and he is a jackhole everywhere else. And I can say jackhole.
Yes, you can. So unfortunately, Anthony Smith is likely not on the docket for John Jones for some time. The person who is likely going to be the person to fight John Jones next is a Polish man by the name of Jan Blachowicz. That John Jones said that he said that he wants some fresh meat on every soil. He feels like popping in some cherries in Poland because he hadn't had that yet. Jan Blachowicz was super happy to hear that, and he said to John Jones that it's a date, and I can't wait to fist you.
Hey, keep it PG. Keep it PG, player. Keep it PG.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
That's what he said.
Quit bringing in your porn fantasies.
I know.
Sir.
Kink. You know what I'm saying? Got some kink there, sir. My ears hurt a little bit for that.
So yeah, I think we
need to check your Google history.
Yeah, John Jones said that first of all, it would be a fight, not a date, and you're not fisting anyone. What a strange guy you are. So yeah, I guess Sonya hadn't heard that because she's like, wait, what? Yeah. That is what was said.
Yeah, that's what it sounded just like you heard it.
Yeah. I think that something got lost in translation. So
I don't think it did. Okay.
Yeah, something definitely gets lost when you're doing things like that.
Wait a minute, George. How would you know these things?
Oh,
man?
yeah.
Never been a participant. I'm just saying.
Just an observer. He's just been an observer.
Yeah, just an observer.
There's this thing called the internet, and they've got more of those movies than.
Speaking of movies, the UFC Fight Pass has added.
He is just loving his setups tonight, isn't he?
Listen, man,
he is on it, man.
This is next level stuff right here. So they basically brought in a bunch of kung fu movies and put that on UFC Fight Pass. So my question for you What is your favorite kung fu movie of all time? I'm gonna. I already know you got one, John. So I'm gonna go with George
I got
first.
like 7 of them, man.
Yeah, you got to
You
pick
know,
one.
I can't think of any particularly just off that. I remember. I want to say some of the ninja movies from back in the day, but if I go
American
back to
Ninja.
Kung Fu Theater, when I was a young child, I actually got to see, Kung Fu Theater every Saturday. And
Yep.
I looked forward to it. Right after cartoons went off around 11, 12 o'clock,
That's right.
Kung Fu Theater came on. So that was my joint,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't think of any of my favorite martial arts movies. It'd have to be Enter the Dragon, man.
Okay, that's a great one. It's a classic.
That's a good one. That's a classic.
All right, John.
Yeah, because here in Dallas, Channel 33 afternoons on Saturdays and Sundays, they play kung fu movies. So that was most of my kung fu education there. God, a favorite. I could just rattle them all off. Okay, since George took Enter the Dragon, I will take the Five Deadly Venoms. All right, very good movie. All right, a lot of twists, a lot of plot. Probably one as a kid, probably one of the more confusing kung fu movies I've ever watched.
Okay, all right, that's a really good one as well. For me, my favorite kung fu movie of all time is Chinese Super Ninjas.
Oh my God! I can not only do I remember that, I actually have it on my hard drive here. Okay. Oh my God!
I'm gonna have to pick that up. I'm gonna have to pick that up from you because I used to have it on VHS and I never converted it to digital. Chinese Super Ninjas is basically one of those low budget kung fu movies, and basically this guy ends up his whole school gets murdered by ninjas, and he runs away, finds a ninja master, and they basically form a group of guys who have to go through this gauntlet of different elemental ninjas to fight the big boss, and he's able to get his revenge on the big boss. But it is my all-time favorite kung fu movie, Chinese Super Ninjas. Sonia said that she went a little bit more modern with Rush Hour.
That was actually a very good movie, and it was right up there. Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker made a excellent pairing. It was actually quite funny. It was during Chris Tucker's rise there. So yeah, definitely a good movie.
Speaking of rise, somebody who just recently rose was Shaquille O'Neal on the back of Francis the Predator Ngannou. So we saw how they had they met, and you got to see how big Shaq was compared to Francis Ngannou. What we didn't get to see, but later they revealed the video, is that Francis Ngannou basically lifted Shaq off the ground, at least a foot off the ground, and then when he put him down said, you're lighter than I would have thought. Shaq is a big dude.
Yeah.
And that's
300 plus pounds.
Yeah.
And we're talking about retired Shaq, so he's probably even heavier than when he was playing.
So check that footage out of Francis Ngannou lifting Shaq. The last story, we started with coronavirus. We're going to end with Fight Island. Fight Island is a thing. The UFC just trademarked it. They trademarked Fight Island. They trademarked UFC Fight Island. They also trademarked a whole bunch of things. The one that I'm interested in actually is UFC Fight Lore. They've been running ads on Facebook. It's basically the fight between Nick Diaz and Joe Diesel Riggs. After they fought in the octagon, they ended up getting into a fight in the emergency room at the hospital.
Yes. That was a what's the word? What kind of story? A behind the scenes type story. But yes, that's how bad the Diaz brothers were back in the day. That they would fight everywhere. Okay, the fight just didn't end in the ring. So Fight Lore is gonna sound good. Let's see, Fight Island, and what's the other one? I mean, the Octagon.
Yeah,
we're gonna, like I said, I just want to see UFC Kumite. That's all I'm really waiting on. I mean, why are they playing with me on this? Okay, I need UFC Kumite.
Well,
Uncle Dana.
They also trademarked BMF and what BMF stands for as well. So that's part of it, man. It's the marketing. It's being able to make sure that you have these things locked down, and they're doing their thing. So now that Fight Island has a true name, I can't wait to see what Fight Island's going to look like. That's it for our show. Follow us on social media. On Instagram, I'm at Combat Sports Talk.
I'm at Keys to Victory, and that's Keys with an ES.
I'm at darkside_MMA_.
All right, you can go to our website at www.combatsportstalk.com. Go back and check out some of the old episodes before we were even doing video. Definitely check that out. We are also on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, so you can check out some of our old episodes there too. Listen how right I am and how wrong John was. Anyway.
Something before we do get off of here, I do miss one of the things that I've missed about not having fights on right now is the banter back and forth between our fight choices. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Uh-huh. So
yeah, maybe we ought to do like a old UFC and just do our banter with that. Like a real like one of the first, like the first 12. We ought to do our banter with that.
Well, here's the thing, is that if we're going to be true to life, that means even though I know the outcomes, I've got to still choose the loser.
True.
I always pick the wrong guy. So, it's like, it's Hoist Gracie fighting. I'm going to choose against Hoist. Dan Severin's fighting. Okay, he's going to lose. So, anyway, I want to send a shout out to MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, Bloody Elbow, and the Intelligent Defense Discussion Group. That's where we get a lot of our content for the show, and the wonderful discussions with the Intelligent Defense Group really keep us on our toes for what we talk about on the show. On behalf of John Keys and George Stallworth, this is Ryan Smith reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs. We'll catch you next time.